Okay, for D, we are looking at loans. So all up till now, we've been putting money in, and now we're going to be the one borrowing money. And everyone at some point is going to have a loan, whether that is you just take out a personal loan, or if you have student loans, you buy a car, a house, you have a credit card. So it's a good thing to know a little bit of interest or a little bit of information about loans. So first of all, loan basics. So the principal in this case is similar to the principal for our savings accounts, whereas it is the number that you start with, our principal amount. Whether that's the amount that we just sit and whether we deposit and let it sit, or whether it's the total amount of money that we put in. In this case, it's the amount that we borrow from the bank, so that beginning initial amount. An installment loan is a special type of loan where you have equal regular payments. So this is not a credit card. So for credit card, you have your minimum payment, right? Which is basically your interest plus a little bit of your principal. Now, an installment loan is used when they're going, instead of having to pay off all of your interest all at once each time, you're just going to kind of spread it out. So like if you buy a house for, $200,000 at 4% interest, you're not going to want to pay that 4% every month, or even the 4% divided by 12 every month. So instead, they're going to even it all out, so you have the same payment for the entire loan. And the loan term is going to be how much time you have to pay back your loan. Okay, so the loan payment formula is very similar to the formula for a savings plan. Except note that here, instead of A equals payment, you have payment equals. Now, do not use this for like figuring out the payment for a savings plan. Make sure you use the steps that we talked about in 4C. Because note here, we have a negative exponent, and we have a 1 minus instead of this minus 1. So it is different. Because right, for interest, for loans, you have to pay that interest. So you're paying more for that, whereas for a savings plan, the bank is paying the interest. So two completely different formulas. Do not use them interchangeably. But PMT does still stand for payment, but instead of having deposits, you're making a payment on your loan. Your P is going to be your initial principal, the amount that you borrowed, just like we did before for our savings accounts. APR, again, is your annual percentage rate. Your N is still going to be the number of payments per year. I already have per year, sorry. The number of payments per year, and then Y is going to be your loan term. Okay, so this Y is a little bit differently than what we've used for savings plans, because in savings plans we're kind of saying, okay, let's say I put it in for 10 years, or what if I put it in for 20 years? So this is a little bit different because you have to look at the entire loan, not just part of the payments. So this time is going to be the loan term. So how long have you taken this payment out for? So in general, each of your loan payments, there's going to be a part of it that goes towards your principal and part of it goes towards your interest. Now, at the very beginning of your loan term, most of that payment is going to go towards your interest. So when we talk about interest, it's always going to be like the percentage of the balance. So at the very beginning, if you weren't going to do this installment loan, you'd end up having to pay a ton of interest, like if you were doing it with a credit card. But an even and out, which means the beginning, the portion of your payment for interest is going to be really high, and the portion towards your principal is low. So at the beginning, you're mostly just paying interest with just a little bit of principal. But as you go on, the amount that you pay in interest is going to decrease, and the amount you pay in principal is going to increase. So that at the very end, you're mostly just paying principal. So here's a graph. On your paper, it's probably a little bit bigger. Let's see if I zoom in here a little bit. So this top line up here represents your payment, and these are periods and not commas. So let's say your payment here is, let's say it's about $780. So you're paying $780 for the entire length of your loan. For, in this case, these are a number of months, so 200, however many months that is, 300 months. So at the beginning, most of your payment here, this darker amount, that's going to be your interest. So instead of having, like I said, having to pay all of your interest all at once, or interest as it's due, you're spreading it out. And of course, we do that just so it's a little bit easier on our bank account. So for in your calculator, for this one, you can go ahead and do it in all at once, because you're not ever going to have to do this backwards, where if you're given the payment, you have to find the principal. So you can, if you want to continue doing the same steps as we did for savings by just putting in what is after the parenthesis first and then doing P times, that's fine. Otherwise, just put in all at once, because you're never going to have to mess with this formula. So you start with your P, and then you APR divided by N, and then divided by the 1 minus 1 plus APR divided by N to the negative N times Y. Note that you have to use that negative button and not the minus sign, otherwise you will get an error. Okay, let's an example. So let's say you borrowed $15,000 at an APR of 9%, which you're paying off with monthly payments of $190 for 10 years. Part A, identify the amount borrowed, the annual interest rate, the number of payments per year, the loan term, and the payment amount. So in other words, we're going to find all of our variables. So the amount borrowed, that is going to be your P. We are borrowing $15,000. The annual interest rate is my APR, and that is my 9% or 0.09. Number of payments per year is my N, and we are making monthly payments, so it is a 12. The loan term is our Y, that is 10 years. And lastly, our payment amount, our PMT, is, they don't tell us, right? So we, wait, no, it did say we are paying $190 per month. Okay, so in this case, they actually give us all the information, right? Because we're just identifying stuff. So for B, how many total payments does the loan require? And what is the total amount paid over the full term of the loan? So how many total payments does the loan require? So it's saying how many payments. It's not asking for an amount. It's asking for how many payments. So the total number of payments, we're not concerned with the dollar amount. We just know we have 12 times every year, and we're doing that for 10 years. The number of payments is going to be your NY. So that is 120. So you're making 120 payments over the life of this loan. And then they want what's the total amount paid. So now they want a dollar amount. So the total paid is going to be the amount you pay each time. So 190 times the total number of times you pay it. So that's 120. So that is $22,800 that you've paid. And again, this payment, just like the other, the last time, is going to be the payment times your n times your y. Okay, part C of the total amount paid, what percentage is paid towards the principal and what percentage is paid for interest. Again, so we're looking for percentage is paid towards the principal and what percentage is paid for interest. Now we'll have two is's, so we're going to have two percentages. Both of them are with this of the total amount paid. So first we want is principal of total paid. And then we want percent that is interest over the total paid. So the amount we paid in principal, so our principal amount was $15,000. The total that we paid was $22,800. So that gives us a 0.66 or a 66%. So of what we paid, 66% of what we paid went towards principal. And you should be able to do this without doing any calculations, right? Because everything is either principal or interest. If we add the two up, we get the total paid, right? So we could do just 100 minus 66% to get a 34%. If you didn't see that, you could just go ahead and do it. So the amount that is interest would be everything extra. So we'd have the 22,800 and we'd have to subtract off the 15,000. So the amount that we paid minus what the principal was is the interest that we paid, and divide that by the total paid is 22,800, and that would again give us 34%. Now please don't get this mixed up with the percent change formula, because that is new minus old divided by the old. This one is divided by that first one. So if it is easier to keep them separate by just doing the 100 minus that, do that, or do these separately. First find the amount of interest and then divide by the total amount paid. Okay, example 2. Consider the following loan. A student loan of $24,000 at a fixed APR of 7% for 10 years. Part A, calculate the monthly payment. Okay, so we need our principal, we need APR, we need N and Y. So our principal is $24,000. APR is 7%, so 0.07. We're making monthly payments, so it is 12, and we're doing this for 10 years. So our payment is going to be our principal times my APR divided by N, all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR over N to the negative N times Y. So when you put all that into your calculator, you end up getting a payment of $278.66. Okay, part B, determine the total amount paid over the term of the loan. Again, the total amount paid, just like with savings, is going to be the payment times N times Y. So we're making $278.66 per month, 12 months out of the year for 10 years. So the total amount we would have paid back on this loan is $33,439.24. Since the original payment was $24,000, that's like what, $9,000 in interest that you would have had to pay on this. So for part C, of the total amount paid, what percentage is paid towards the principal and what percentage is paid for interest? Again, we have percentage is paid towards principal and the percentage is paid for interest. Both of these is of the total amount paid. So we need the principal over everything paid, and then we need interest over everything paid. So my suggestion is to do what is easiest with the number that you already have. Well, we have of the top, of the principal or interest. And usually for loans, you always know the principal. So I would always figure out the principal first, even if it doesn't ask it, because to me, that's just a little bit easier than trying to figure out the interest first and then dividing. So for the principal, we have 24,000 and we paid 33,439.24. So we divide those and we would get it 0.72 or 72%. So of the amount that we paid back, 72% was our principal. So to get the interest, we just do 100 minus 72% to get a 28%. Another example, you borrow $100,000 over a period of 30 years at a fixed APR of 5.5%. Calculate the monthly payment. Okay, so again, we have our loan amount of $100,000. My APR is 5.5%, so 0.055. My N monthly payment, so it's going to be 12, and my Y, we're doing it for 30 years. So my payment is going to be my principal times APR divided by N, all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR over N, the negative N times Y. Putting all of that in your calculator would give you $567.79. Now determine the total amount paid over the life of the loan. Total pays, we're going to have our payment, and we're going to times that by 12 times a year, and we're doing that for 30 years. So total paid would be $204,404.04. 204,404.04. Sorry, this is a funny number. So you took out a $100,000 loan, but you paid back $204,000. Of the total amount paid, what percentage is paid towards the principal and what percentage is paid towards interest? So we have our principal overpaid, and we have our interest overpaid. Okay? Because it says is paid towards the principal of total amount paid. So principal here is $100,000, and you paid back $204,404.04, and that gives us a 0.49 or 49%, which means towards interest is we take the 100% minus 49%, and we would end up with 51%. So just over half of what we paid back was interest. Okay, credit cards. Now, credit cards are not installment loans, but we can still think about installment loans when we do with credit cards if you kind of create your own. So if you just pay back your monthly, like the minimum monthly, it's going to take you a lot longer to pay off that credit card, and you're going to end up paying a ton of interest. So what you can do is you can create kind of your own installment loan, saying I'm going to pay it off in so many years. How much would I have to pay monthly in order to accomplish that, or yearly, or however often you want to put it in. So example 4, suppose on January 1st you have a balance of $10,000 on your credit card, and you want to pay that off in the given time below, assuming that you make no additional charges to the card after January 1st. Of course, if you make more charges, this whole thing you have to redo because you're going to have a new balance. So the credit card APR is 20%, and you want to pay off the balance in 2 years. So how much would you have to pay per month calculate monthly payments, how much you have to pay per month in order to pay it off in 2 years. So you want to find your payment. So they give you a principal of $10,000. Your APR is 20%. Now note, this is the first time that we've had an APR that's over 10. So just watch your decimals here. It is tempting to do it 0.02 because everything else is always at that 0. But note that this is 20% in decimal is 0.2. Okay, we're making monthly payments, so that is 12, and you want to pay this off in 2 years. So put it in my equation. I have my payment. This would be my principal times my APR, which is 0.2 divided by my n, all over 1 minus 1 plus my 0.2 divided by 12, where's the negative 12 times 2. And that gives me a payment of $508.96. So if I pay $508.96, every month for the next 2 years, I will get that $10,000 balance down. Part B, when the card is paid off, how much will you have paid since January 1st? So again, this is saying how much, the total amount paid. So we're paying $508.96 each month, 12 times a year for 2 years. So after those 2 years, I would have paid $12,215.04. So see what percentage of your total payment is interest. Okay, so here we're only asking for 1%. They only want the percentage that is interest of your total payment. So they only want interest of paid. So again, I can figure out the amount of interest, or I know that it is going to be 100% minus what it is for principal. Oops. Okay. So in other words, we're going to figure out that principal first, the percent that is principal. So my principal was $10,000, and I paid $12,215.04. So 10,000 divided by 12,215.04, I get a 0.819, which is 81.9%. But I want the interest, so I'm going to take 100 and I'm going to subtract off my 81.9 to get 18.1%. So 18.1% of what I paid back is interest. Okay, example 5. Suppose on January 1st you have a balance of $10,000 in credit card that you want to pay off in a given amount of time. So basically the same thing. So we have $10,000, but this time the credit card APR is 22%, and you want to pay it off in just 1 year. So now the monthly payment. My principal is still $10,000. My APR now is 22%, so 0.22, so a little bit higher APR. We're still making monthly payments, but this time we want to pay it off in 1 year. So my payment here, so I have 10,000 times my APR divided by my n, all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR. Sometimes computers are a little annoying. Okay, plus 0.22 divided by 12 raised to the negative n times y. And I get a payment of $935.94. So I'd have to pay $935.94 every month in order to pay that balance off in a year. So when the car is paid off, how much will you have paid? This is January 1st, so the total payment. So you make $935.94 each month for 12 months. For 12 months every year and for 1 year. So you will have paid back $11,231.28. Okay, so now what percentage of your payment is interest? So if we first figure out the principal, right, so is interest of total amount paid. So we could either figure out the interest or the principal because they're related. Let's figure out the principal first. So is principal of paid. So our principal is $10,000. That we paid is $11,231.28. And we get .89 or 89%, which means percent that is interest is going to be 100% minus my 89%. So that is 11%. So before it was 18% if we paid it off in 2 years with an APR of 20%. Here we paid it off in 1 year with an APR of 22%. We're only paying 11% interest total. Okay, so mortgage is a specific installment loan that is specifically talking about a home. So just some terminology about mortgages. We have a down payment usually. There are some loan options where you may not have to pay a down payment, but generally they do like you to use that, and that's typically between 10 and 20% of the purchase price, and then the loan would be the extra amount. So say for example you're buying a $300,000 home and they want you to do a $30,000 down payment. You pay $30,000 cash, and then the $270,000 left over will be the loan amount. Okay, and then you have closing costs, which are really annoying. Basically just fees for taking out the loan. Ideally, you want to try to get the seller to pay those, but you may not be able to negotiate that. So some certain things that might be included in the closing costs are direct fees for things like getting the home appraised or checking your credit history. So that's just going to be like a fixed amount. But then there's also what are called points, where each point is 1% of the loan amount. So your closing costs could be like $1,000 plus 2 points. And so the direct fees it doesn't matter how much the loan is, points it does. And then sometimes there's discount points, where if you accept more points, you might get a lower APR or something or other. Like I've only ever bought one house and I didn't do it right, so I didn't look into it as much as I should have. So generally, mortgage interest rates are lower than personal loans, especially credit cards, just because it's such a big ticket item. And with a mortgage, if you don't pay, then the bank or mortgage company can take back your house, and that's called foreclosure. Oops. And there's 2 types of mortgages. There's what's called a fixed rate mortgage, which is just what it says. It's a mortgage where the interest rate is fixed over the entire life of the loan. So you get what you get and you just keep it. And then there's what's called an adjustable rate mortgage. Which can be abbreviated as ARM. So this one, it can change based on what the prevailing rates are. So it might start off at 3%, and then the next time it could increase to 4%, and the next time it can decrease to 2%. So you're not guaranteed the same amount. So this sometimes is better, sometimes it's not than the fixed rate. Generally, you have a rate cap that can't be exceeded. So like you're always going to have, so you might start at 3%, but you're guaranteed to never go above like 6%. Also, it may say that it can only increase by so much every year. So if it starts at 3%, it may say it's never going to increase more than 1.5% each year. So if it starts at 3, the next one, the highest it can be is 4.5%. And then it might still go up again to get to 6% and 7.5% and so on up to your cap. But also it's not going to decrease by more than that amount. And we'll look at some examples in that. Okay, so let's compare two loans. So compare the monthly payments and total loan cost for the following pairs of loan options. Assume both loans are fixed rate and have the same closing costs. And discuss the pros and cons of each. So we need a $180,000 loan. We can either get a 30-year loan at an APR of 7.25%, or we can get a 15-year loan at 6.8%. Find the monthly payment for each option. Okay, so for the first option, our principal is $180,000. Our APR is 7.25%, so 0.0725. My N, we're making monthly payments, and we are making this for 30 years. So our payment for this first option, so you have 180,000 times my APR over N, all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR over N, raised to negative N times Y. So I'm going to put that down here. So my payment here for option 1 will be $1,227.92. Okay. Option 2, my principal is still $180,000, but my APR for this option is 6.8%, so 0.068. I'm still making monthly payments, but this time I'm making it for 15 years. So my payment here, I have 180,000 times my APR over N, all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR over N, raised to negative N times Y. Run over. Okay, so that payment would be $1,597.83. So of course, paying it off quicker, even with a lower interest rate, it's probably going to have a higher monthly payment. Okay, so total amount paid. So option 1, if we pay $1,227.92 each month, so 12 months every year for 30 years, we would end up paying $442,051.20 over that 30 years. So we take out a $180,000 loan, we end up paying back $442,000. Okay, option 2. This time we paid $1,597.83 12 times every year, but we only pay for 15 years. And this is $287,000 $609.40. So we take a loan of $180,000, we pay back $287,000. It's a lot of money, but not quite as bad as option one. So comparing our two options, which one is better? And so is one always going to be better? Is two always going to be better? Or is one going to be better sometimes than the other? So if we just look at monthly payment, we like the option one because it has a lower payment, right? But if you look at the total amount paid, option two looks a lot better because we don't have to pay as much overall. So it just depends on which one is more important to you, which may change depending on where you're at in life. So we know it's not A or B. So for C, option one is a better option, but only if the borrower needs a lower monthly payment, which seems right. But let's look at option two for D. Option two is a better option, but only if the borrower can afford the higher monthly payments over the entire length of the term of the loan. So C is good, but it's not the best answer here. In this case, it is D. It's just kind of worded better. So in general, you want to pay the least amount of money, right? So option two seems like it's a lot better idea, but you can only do it if you can afford the higher monthly payments. Okay, example 7, now let's look at closing costs. So consider the following pairs of loan options for a $120,000 mortgage. Calculate the monthly payment and the total closing costs for each option. Explain which option you would choose and why. So, monthly payment for each choice. So choice 1. Our principal, so both of them were getting out a $120,000 mortgage. And for none of these, we're just kind of ignoring this is like after the down payment. This is what you would be taking. The APR for this choice is 4.5%, so 0.045. We're making monthly payments, and choice 1 is for 30 years. Now note the closing costs don't affect your monthly payments, because closing costs you have to pay up front. That's like the very beginning of the loan, and it doesn't affect the loan amount. It's just something extra on top of it. So this payment, so we have 120,000 times my APR divided by my N, all over 1 minus my 1 plus APR over N to the negative N times Y, to get a payment of $608.02. Okay, option or choice 2. Our principal is still 120,000. Our APR here is 4.25, so 0.0425. My N is still 12, and my years are still 30. Okay, so for choice 2, my payment is 120,000 times my APR over N, all over 1 minus 1 plus APR over N to the negative NY. So payment for choice 2 would be $590.33. So choice 1 is 608, choice 2 is 590. Now the total closing costs for each choice. So for choice 1, we have a fixed fee of $1,200, and then we have a 1 point. So closing costs will be the fixed plus the point, right, is the percentage point. So this would be 1% of our total loan amount. So 1% of 120,000. And to get 1% of 120,000, we do 0.01 times 120,000. And and then we can add that on to our 1,200, and so we get a total closing cost of $2,400. Choice 2 has a fixed closing cost of $1,200 as well, but this one has 3 points for, I don't know why it's doing that. So 3% of your 120,000. So it's 1,200 plus 0.03 times 120,000, which is 4,800. So which one would you choose? Choice 1 or choice 2? So choice 1 could be better if you want the lower payment. Choice 2 could be better if you want the lower closing cost, right? So if we're looking at payments, the lower payment we like better, so that's choice 2. For closing costs, we like the smaller closing cost, that would be choice 1. So choice 1 is better when the, oh, I got that backwards, didn't I? I didn't read the question. So choice 1 is better for the closing cost because it has a smaller closing cost. So choice one is better because closing costs are lower. And then choice 2 was better when we looked at payments. So the payment level was lower. Okay, now suppose we have a student loan of $60,000 with an APR of 8% for 25 years. What are your required monthly payments? So our principal here, so we have 60,000. That is our student loan. My APR is 8%, so 0.08. We are making monthly payments, and it's 12, and we are making them for 25 years. So my payment here, so we have our principal times APR over N, and minus 1 plus our APR over N, raised to the negative N times Y. And we get 463.09. On the student loan, we pay $463.09. Suppose instead you'd like to pay off the loan in 15 years instead of 25. What monthly payments will you need to make? So instead of having 25 years, we're going to change the Y to 15. So everything else stays the same. But instead of paying off 25 years, you want to say, how much would I have to pay for 15 years? So 1 plus 0.08 divided by 12. So you just change the 25 to a 15. And you get 573.39. Change that. 5. Okay. So if you pay it off in 15 years, you have to pay more, which is understandable. So you pay $573.39 instead of $463. So now let's compare the total amounts you pay over the loan term if you pay it off in 25 years versus 15 years. So if you can afford that $573, would it be worth it? So if you paid it off in 25 years, how much would you end up paying? So you're paying $463.09 each month, 12 times a year for 25 years. So you'd end up paying back $138,927 even. If you pay it back in 15 years, you pay $573.39 each month, 12 times a year for 15 years, and you'd end up paying $103,210.20. So should you go for the 15 years? Well, I mean, you pay $35,000 less by paying it off in 15 years than 25. So if you can afford that higher payment, go for it. Okay, amortization schedule. So this is basically just a big table that shows you each month's payment, its breakdown, and so it's just like all the information you need to know for your loan. So let's say we're looking at a bank, we're looking at getting a loan. We'll want a 5-year, $25,000 loan to purchase a car, and the annual interest rate is 6%. So let's calculate the monthly payment using the loan formula we just learned. So our principal is $25,000. My APR is 6%, so 0.06. We want to make monthly payments, so my N is 12, and we are doing this for 5 years. We want a 5-year loan. So our payment would be $25,000 times my APR divided by N over 1 minus 1 plus my APR divided by N. There's a negative N times my Y. So that we should get a value of 483.32. So with our formula, we say that monthly payment is going to be 483.32. So there's an example of this here in a little bit, but so with the amortization table, you have a payoff table, which shows the progress of your loan payment. You know, the breakdown and how that applies to your balance. So in this case, because we're making a 5-year loan for monthly payments, we're going to have 60 rows, one for each payment. So up here we have just all the basic information of the loan. The payment is $483.32. We're going to make 60 payments, 5 times 12. We're taking a loan $25,000 with a 6% interest rate, and everything else just kind of calculated off of that. So let's say we start it on September 1st. So the first payment, our balance is $25,000. We do a payment of $483.32. $358 of that is going to go towards your principal. $125 that's going towards your interest. So your ending balance, you're going to take the $25,000 and you're going to subtract off the $358.32 to get $24,641.68. And then this $125 is our cumulative interest. That's just adding up all these. So my next payment, again, you're going to make $483.32. $360 of that is going to go towards principal. $123 is going towards interest. So now my current balance is you take the $24,641, subtract off the $360 that went towards principal to get $24,281. And then so far you paid $248.21 in interest. That's $125 plus the $123. And so on. It just continues doing this all the way for all 60 months. And you can look at it and you can see that as you go, the amount that goes towards principal is increasing and the amount that's going towards interest is decreasing. So that at the end, these last ones, you pay $483.32. Practically all of it is going towards your principal, and just very little of it is going towards your interest. And so you can see with this loan, you end up paying almost $4,000 in interest. And that is it for 4D.